And thank you very much for joining us here on PM Express here on the Joy News channel. This is another Wednesday and we're doing the Manifesto Tracker. Today we are looking at the housing debate. It's a major sector, affects every single person in this country. And we're delighted to say that later on we'll be joined by the Minister for Works and Housing, Mr. Thatcher himself, and also we'll be joined together with him by the minority spokesperson on housing. He's Emmanuel Bajra, who also joined us on set as we begin to break down the manifestos and their promises and interventions on the housing sector. The most important thing about Manifesto Tracker is by the time we are done, we are hoping that both representatives will articulate their various policy interventions, and so help you make a decision. If housing is the sector that is most important to you in making the decision on December 7th, hopefully you can get clarity on who is addressing that need for you by the end of this particular show. With me in the studio this evening, as you always do, is to have a co-host, because we've done the analysis together. This is Imani's partnership, by the way, and Dennis Asari is an internal consultant at Imani Africa, and they are helping us with the analysis of the two parties' manifesto. This is going to form the basis of the conversation we are going to have with the minister and the minority ranking member on the committee when it comes to the housing sector. Dennis, thank you for joining us. Some good work you've done. Let's go straight into it. Let's start with the numbers, as we always do. If you look at the two manifestos, the NDC has 10 sector promises on housing. The MPP has 15. This is one of the areas where the MPP seem to have more volume in terms of the individual interventions than the NDC. Yeah. Housing appears to be very important to the MPP.
Very important because they've done a lot of activities like with the UNOPS, with the National Housing Mortgage Financing Framework, and other strategies that they have put in place. So they expect that all of these strategies will materialize in the next 4 years, assuming they win the elections.
Okay, so that's where we see this play out. Everywhere else we've done Manifesto Tracker, the NDC had more individual promises and interventions than the MPP, but for housing. We'll tell you why shortly as we go into the specifics. Let's go into the specifics. As we know, we have divided this into two parts. There's the affordable housing part, and there's a financing framework part. We'll come to that first. But let's start with the affordable housing part, which is, for most Ghanaians, a key and important element. The NDC is promising to roll out an aggressive social housing plan, minimum of 20,000 low-income houses in all 260 MMDAs in the 4 years that they are in power. If they get to win the elections, the MPP is proposing also to build low-income housing estates using local materials, working with the Building and Roads Research, private developers as well. Land banks have already been secured. Question that the minister must tell us is, where are the land banks? When were they secured? And the purpose is to get houses available for rent, rent to own, outright purchase. A few things to notice here. Low income. Questions I will be asking is, what is low income? How are they defining it? But for the NDC, they are more specific than the NDC here. They want to build 20,000.
So what we see is that as a country, the formal sector produced about 5,000 houses every single year.
Annually.
But as a country, our housing demand annually is around 100,000. And for us to balance the 1.7 million deficit in terms of housing units, we need about 100,000 every single year. And out of that, 30% is supplied. And out of that 30%, the formal sector gives us just around 4,500 housing. So the NDC makes the estimation that then in the course of the 4 years, across the country, every single year, with partnership with the private sector, I can produce about 5,000 housing units working with the formal sector. But what we should understand also is that out of the 30% of the 100,000 annual demand, or 30% supply of that 100,000, we have about 80 or between 80 to 82% being supplied from the informal sector.
Which is the huge chunk. When we say informal sector, that is all of you house owners who rent your property to people.
Definitely. That's the informal sector,
that's
where
the informal
they utilize craftsmen or artisanal workers.
The formal sector is the big real estate companies who put up stuff to rent.
The chunk of the houses come from the informal sector, but formally, for you to estimate or do a projection, the NDC uses the real estate sector as the basis of the estimation.
And so if you look at, and we'll tell you, we're going to show you graphs to back the conclusions we are reaching in terms of analyzing this. NDC says 20,000 in 4 years. The key question to us is this realistic? Knowing what the data and the research says, our conclusion is that this is realistic.
In 4 years,
if
consistently the real estate sector is incentivized and the market moves as it is now, that is around 18% attractiveness, then we should see this being materialized.
Because already, even before this promise was made, we know the formal sector is producing
4,500, between 4,500 and
5,000 a year. And so for times 4,
yes.
20,000. Now, the thing about the MPP's own, they are not as specific in terms of how many units exactly they want to do in 4 years.
In 4 years.
We'll come to that because they've done a lot of work already in the last 4 years.
Definitely.
We'll come to that. But they also took about low-income housing. The point you made applies to them, which is that they're also focusing on formal sector.
Formal sector. So because it's hard to count or identify the informal sector housing, most of the time, if you're doing any projection, you have to look at the formal sector. But if you look at the NPP, the reasons why they are not specific is that they are looking at the UNOPS coming on stream, the 51 million affordable housing project that was started under the Kufuor administration era, assuming they get that facility, that one also coming on stream. The project, that assessment and evaluation they are doing at the Saglemi, the PON and other projects coming on stream, we are more likely to see also working with the private sector. They will also want to work with the real estate sector. That 5,000 coming on stream and all of these public housing coming on stream, we are more likely to see their figure also hovering around 20,000 or 30,000 within the 4-year period.
Something else will pop up shortly when it comes to numbers in terms of what the MPP is trying to do. And this is the one I want to focus on right now, which is the MPP says, under the accelerated national housing program, units currently being delivered annually, which we just told you is around 5,000. It's actually formal sector.
But annually, if you look at the 100,000 household demand that we need, 30% of that is being supplied. But out of that 30%, 4,500 comes from the formal sector.
Now, what the MPP is proposing to do in the next 4 years is that they would increase this threefold. So we put the number to this. They want to increase the 5,000 per year to 15,000.
Assuming they are working with the formal sector, they should see 15,000. And that 15,000, the reason why they didn't even specifically only say the formal sector, they say private and public. Because there are a lot of public housing projects that are already underway. I'm sure the Saglemi and PON evaluations have been done. 51 million facility on affordable housing. And the UNOPS, assuming the capital of 5 billion is raised, then we should see that actually being increased more than what we are seeing now from the formal, because the public sector looks more formal because it rides on the same model as the formal sector.
True. The quick question to ask them too is this again realistic, knowing the numbers and what the data tell us in terms of increasing this threefold?
Okay, so should all of the public housing that's modeled around the private housing framework come on stream, we should see that threefold increase. But if that one too is not materialized and we are going solely like the NDC approach of the private sector, then this will not be realistic.
Pretty difficult to achieve this. Now, let's look at what NDC is saying. NDC will work with the traditional authorities to acquire lands for the project. They want to give incentives by giving the traditional authorities some of the built properties. Key question here is we know how difficult land acquisition, registration, etc. is when it comes to traditional authorities. They're going to have a challenge here.
The challenge is that a chunk of the land transactions or land management that we have in this country, 80% of lands are owned at the customary ownership level. But the system that we have created only captures land that is treated in the formal sector. So majority of these lands that are captured under customary land ownership, there's challenges with clear land rights, clear ownership rights, clear boundaries, and also even the financing and also even getting these lands registered. The cost of registering that, all of that will make it difficult for the government to get all of these traditional owners providing their lands, knowing that land ownership in this country is very diffused. So that is the challenge the NDC is more likely to face.
Because it's always contested, this particular area. It's not as straightforward as it seems. Also, affordable housing, NDC continue to snake affordable housing projects across the country in partnership with the private sector. Again, the NPP said they will expand the capacity of the State Housing Corporation to lead government's efforts, along with the private sector, to build a large pool of affordable homes for Ghanaian workers and families.
Okay, so if you look at currently, the State Housing Corporation is already doing that. There are about 9 projects across the country that they are doing. They have a partnership with Republic Bank where they are building mortgage financing.
The key question to us is when they say expand capacity, what exactly is that?
Expanding capacity means that all the projects that are underway, we are going to expand. Some of them are just a project that they've cut out, or let's say they have commissioned, but actual construction has not begun. So that's what they are doing now. And if you look at their website, all of these are listed. Now, if you look at the SNIT affordable housing project, currently the ministry have given the Kufuor Mampong affordable housing to SNIT. So I'm sure based on that, the NDC would like to, give that project also to SNIT to continue. But it is within the activities of the NPP as well.
The bigger challenge here is cost, accessibility.
Good. So when SNIT is going to do the market, SNIT will operate like, let's say, a private market investor who's also in the housing sector.
Of course, because, you know, they're investing our
pension funds.
And they have to make the returns. They have to make the returns and justify the investment. I mean, in this area, NDC sort of stands alone because of what they're proposing. Liaise with some banks and other financial institutions. Zongo housing. This is interesting. We'll come and show you why the data is showing that this one of those challenge promises that the NDC will find very difficult.
Definitely, because this is overly ambitious. Majority of our Zongo communities are characterized as low-income communities that, because they do not have high incomes, they can't access decent homes. So they don't live in the urban areas, but some of them either live in the peri-urban or the slums or the areas where housing is very cheap, but it is not decent. It lacks the right infrastructure for you to call it a right community in terms of internet, electricity, water, and let's see, other social facilities that makes a very decent community. Now, in such a low-income area, the question is, what will incentivize a bank to invest in housing within a Zongo community, knowing that the risk is very high?
And they don't make as much as they will do if they're doing it for the high end. And I mean, the data says they'll make about 12%. Meanwhile, when you do it for the upscale.
If you build houses for the higher income bracket, the returns are around 15.9%, but if you do for the low income, around 12.9%. Now, even within, what is surprising is that within the administration of the NDC, they were able to reduce the number of slums in the country. So between 2010,
we'll show you the data shortly. I want to quickly go to that.
We saw a reduction in the number of slums in the country.
I mean, introduce a housing revolving fund. You say this is the way to go.
This is the silver lining I see, because majority of the housing unit supply come from the informal sector, and the challenge there is access to land rights, access to proper land ownership, and access to proper finance. So what we see there is what we call incremental ownership, incremental building. They build as and when they have the money. So with this fund, it gives them access to a cheaper loan for them to build faster. So in that way, if you're able to accelerate this program very big, we may catch up with, let's say, fulfilling or resolving the housing deficit in a shorter period. Looking at this way, that's how I see it.
Now, here's the thing, big thing too. Both parties, what they're proposing to do doesn't even begin to address the housing deficit. Now, this is a graph that tells you you're tracking the housing deficits in 1970.
Yes.
And you can see that this is the population versus the deficit has constantly been growing over the period.
Definitely, yes. Because as your population increases and the rate of urbanization also increases, the first thing that the pressure goes on to access to homes. Now, as currently Ghana is about 60% urbanized, and even as from 1970 we are just around 23%. And in 2020 we are 60% urbanized, and by the time we get to 2025 we are expecting to be around 65% urbanized. As urbanization or like people are moving into the cities, the first thing they will need is housing. And that is why we see that the housing deficit. But over the years, from independence to structural adjustment program area, economic recovery program area, even to the Fourth Republic, all the housing policies, because they fail to tackle the informal sector building, that is why we don't see most of these policies materializing to resolve the deficit.
And so the deficit currently is at
still increasing.
Almost 1.7 million. That's a huge, and it's been going up. I remember 3-4 years back, it was around 1 million. And it keeps on rising. But there's something I noticed in this graph that is interesting. If you look at 2000 and 2010, the rate of the deficit, the climb, sort of slowed down a little bit. This is the Kufuor. Mainly the Kufuor
era between 2000 to 2010
is our best performing period in terms of the slowing down the deficit. And we know why, because Kufuor did a lot of investment in housing, but also the economy sort of took off
a lot after because we witnessed a lot of economic growth between 2008 to 2010. There was low interest rate, so people could access finance, and because majority of the supply is coming from self-financing, once interest rates are low, they will prefer, because something price to rent ratio. Now, if the cost to rent is even higher or higher compared to even getting access to loans to build your own house, people will prefer to build their own house. And if you look at the housing project President Kufuor started, it boosted investor confidence. So if you look at between 2000 to 2010, we saw a lot of real estate companies springing up.
Yeah.
So they provided housing, and at that time, because economic growth was very high at that period, you saw a lot of people moving into the middle class. And middle class will try to look for a decent home. So they were able to afford, let's say to some extent, the cheaper estate houses that were in the country.
I mean, so that is an important point. The question is whether this current MPP government can replicate. They've had 4 years already.
Yes.
They want to have another 4 years.
It didn't happen.
You know,
between this period,
we have seen that
around 200,000.
Yeah, we have because you see the steep rise. The climb has.
But one thing that they've been able to do.
The minister is here, so he's seen the performance of his last 4 years in superintending, attempting to reduce the housing deficit. But one plus is that in terms of regenerating these buildings, they've done super, especially for public servants. Okay, so there's another key bit of statistics that we need to show you.
Yes.
Now, currently, this is the price of the cheapest newly built house in Ghana you can get. The one you can say is affordable, right?
Yes.
Affordable. That is $20,000. That is just over 100,000 cedis.
Yes, just around 108,800 cedis. Now, this is just within the formal sector, but if you look at the informal sector, because it's incremental, the cost may not be as huge as this. But because government normally base the estimations by the formal sector, we assume that when we talk about our access to affordable housing, the first one is provided. Now, you see that throughout the manifesto, you provide. But the next question is, how many people can afford this? Now, we look at countries like Nigeria,
they're doing far cheaper.
But if you look at the size of their homes, we are doing around 55 meters. That's about one bedroom fully furnished house. But Nigeria is doing around 45 meters size of a house, and they are doing around 8,040 size of their market. But here, we are doing it around 20,000. Now, the question is, looking at our income levels, how many people can afford this?
I mean, and that we'll come to explain why this is such a big deal for both parties in terms of addressing this in the manifesto. Because at this current rate, and this is a graph that is interesting, at the current rate of how many units you are putting on the market every year, it's going to take us
31 years now
to meet to bridge the deficit.
Holding the self-financing aspect, because a chunk of the supply, about 30% of the housing demand on the market, the supply that comes around 30%, 80% is from self-financing. Holding self-financing constant. If the government focus is on facilitating or accelerating formal housing development, then if you want to resolve even the current deficit, the formal housing is going to take them around 31 years using a proxy of about 41,000 savvy. If you look at 41,000 houses that they counted, they realized that holding all things constant and looking at all the developers that they contacted, it's going to take them about 31 years for them to meet the current deficit we're experiencing. And mind you, the deficit will increase as long as the population is also increasing. So it begs the question that how come none of the manifestos, apart from the NDC, seeks to give people access to low loans to build their own houses? Okay,
I mean, Mr. Tachi, I'm sure might disagree with that. And the question of what they've done before. But the truth is, in the manifestos for 2021, 2024, the NDC
the focus is on formal sector.
Yes. I mean, we'll come to that. I mean, hopefully we'll get to ask him. This I like because, I mean, it's difficult for you to see exactly. But I want to point out to you something. The 9.4%, only 9.4% can afford the cheapest affordable
house. Because as a country, if you look at
this is where the NDC Zongo housing initiative
becomes very difficult.
Even more impossible.
Impossible, because currently, if you look at the Ghana Living Standard Survey, the average income as a country or annual income of a household is around 33,000. But if you break that the population into 5, the first, second, third quintile group, they live below 23,000 Ghana cedis. Now, with that population, they can't afford even the cheapest house in the country.
And those are the people who live in the Zongo.
And those are the people who also work in the informal sector.
True. Now, and none of the parties really are proposing a lot of things to address the informal sector workers. But all of the things that they propose, you have to be a regular
income earner. And you know, the real estate companies are not even interested in building house for the low income earner.
Why should they?
It is not attractive.
It's not profitable.
Why should they even spend money and go in? That's why if you look at the 2020 manifesto of the two parties, they seek to incentivize the real estate industry to go because it's not an attractive venture. But now, if you look at this, even if you use the expenditure approach, if you use the nominal income approach, it means that people may underreport their income. But if you look at expenditure, using a power purchase parity of around 2 cedis to 13 pesos, you still look at majority of the population, about 90% still can't afford, or about 80% of them can't afford.
So the key question that both parties must answer is, what are they doing to address that? They call it affordable, but what is affordable? They have to define it, as we've told you. Now, this is a land title registered challenge, because only 71,167
houses have been registered,
and that due to the NDC's intervention of saying that they're going to work with the
fund. Because if you look at majority of the supply coming from self-financing, and the challenge is that because there are difficulties with land administration in the country, and that the system failed to capture the customary section of the market, most people prefer to take security over their land rather than registering it. So if you look at a survey of
the registration asks 6% cost.
6% cost is difficult. If you look at
the property,
the cheapest house in the country,
why would I spend 6%?
6% of the cost. So about 5%, or let's say 6% of 100,000 property, or a property of the value of 100,000. 6% of that value goes into even registering the property.
And that's the point that I hadn't seen in manifestos addressing that challenge, because we pumped a lot of money into the
land administration piece,
map, and
but after the LAP, the investment in land administration has declined, because the LAP was funded by the World Bank.
World Bank. Okay, so let's look at so how are they? What are the proposals to finance all that they are doing to get us to afford it? The NDC says they established a low-interest rent advance scheme in partnership with the institutions and banks. The MPP has one. They established a national rental assistance scheme in partnership with the private sector to provide low-interest loans to eligible Ghanaians to enable them pay rent advance. Now, what they say next is that they are going to put in a hundred million into this particular area to get people to rent. Both of them are proposing to help us rent.
So there's the argument about rent to own or renting facilities. Now people look at the price to rent ratio. If the ratio of, let's say, renting is higher, then it means that it's much even profitable to even rent a facility than even trying to buy it. So with this seed money, what the government seeks to do is that give people ready available cash to now rent facilities, where they do the estimation and realize that renting that facility is even cheaper than even owning, because truth be told, not everybody can own a house, but majority of the population will rent a house.
Definitely.
But they need to also do that estimation. So government is giving that seed money. That limits them from accessing decent homes. But the question is, if majority of your supply is coming from self-financing, where incremental building is the problem, why wouldn't you set this as a seed money to give them easy access to loans like we did for MBSSI, for small businesses to get access to loans?
So that private people like me who wants to just build my one bed, two bedroom,
your one bedroom, two bedroom house, and even when you build that, you can even rent a part.
And live in that other one.
Yes, and that will help you even pay this, because it's not free. You are going to pay. But where people are unable to pay, the stockpile, government will need to look for money elsewhere
and do it.
Seed money,
and do it. I mean, so that's an interesting one. Mortgage and rent assistance. They set up the National Mortgage Assistance Scheme. That's the NDC. Rent to pay agreements over 15 to 20 years. Establish the National Housing and Mortgage Finance Company. There's a lot of this you see in the 2019 budget that the MPP said they will do. The key question to ask the minister is, how much of that have they implemented? Okay,
so currently they have the National Housing Mortgage Financing Framework with a seed money of about 1 billion Ghana cedis. And with that, some will go into incentivizing real estate, some also go into like soft loans.
Again, question is, how much of the 1 billion have they actually?
Okay. Yeah, it's a matter of financing, but it looks better in that sense rather than starting nothing, because when the UNOPS starts, when Saglemi and other projects start, you will need some of these things to be like security to help people. But the question is, how long will it take and how much does it take for an average income earner to access a mortgage?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite
so when you get to the numbers,
I want to quickly go to the numbers, because that explains to you why some of these interventions are important, but some of them are challenging. Because this, again, is something that they propose to set up, the Real Estate Investment Trust.
And it's already been, it started in 2019. So more like incentivizing real estate.
I mean, tax-deductible mortgages as well.
All of that,
now, this is one of those areas that the pensions come in. Because in fact, both parties proposing to use some form of the pensions.
NDC wants to use the tier 2, because going into the future, one of the surest way of building your mortgage market is to use pension funds. So
now this is a challenge that both parties are going to face.
Yes,
because we have a mortgage market that is not performing in terms of people repaying.
Yes, so the non-performing loans rate is around 18%. Currently, there are about $747 million kind of in terms of mortgages outstanding that has not been paid is around 747 million. If you just oppose it across the African region, Ghana is ranked around the countries where we have higher non-performing loan rate. And if you look at the interest rate of our mortgage market,
I mean, 24%.
It's higher for nominal. This is the nominal interest rate. That is for normal mortgages.
Yeah.
This is how much you are expected to pay. But if you go for public homes, like the one the Ministry of Housing is doing,
it's already doing the 1 billion using
yes,
the other banks. It's far cheaper.
Yes. Now Republic Bank is doing around 11.9%, and Stanbic is doing around 12%. Because these are the major banks.
I mean, you know, when I saw this and I saw that it's being implemented, I was surprised because how come I haven't heard enough about this? Because if I can get a mortgage at 11.9%, that the government is already putting $1 billion CDs in it. I mean,
but Evan, the key question is that even at this 11.9% over a 10-year or 20-year period, the average monthly payment that the deposit is around 20%. So for the affordable house, like 100,000 Ghana cedis house, you have to pay about $4,000 as down payment, 20%. But the promises in the manifesto says that even with issues around down payment, government is trying to remove that and reduce the down payment. Even if it is reduced, holding taxes, property rate taxes constant, holding other expenditure constant, and other, let's say, taxes that other mortgage company or the individual will have to pay constant. The average monthly payment that you have to do is between 500 Ghana cedis to 700 Ghana cedis every single month, over about 120 payment
will be unable to.
And now the first quintile of Ghanaians, they earn about 7,000 Ghana cedis a year. Break down into 12 months and realize that they can't still go in for a mortgage.
Yeah, I mean, and most people would like to live in these areas, airport, East Legon. So the key question to ask is, can government propose it?
So this is what puts the rent, either the renting scheme or rent-own scheme into perspective, that if I am a house owner, what will incentivize me to put my house out for rent to own? And for rent to own, as a seller, what I benefit is that if you're unable to meet your debt requirement or your monthly payment requirement, I take back the house. But for you as the buyer, one benefit you stand to gain is that you can explore the house. Secondly, even if you have a bad credit rating, you can still go in for some of these houses. But the question is, 100 million Ghana cedis rent assistance scheme, assuming 50% of your applicants want to live within these areas. Now, the average
money will run out very quickly.
The average family in Ghana is around 3. So most of them will be hovering around 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom flats. And on average, within airport, you will need around 29,000 Ghana cedis to rent a house for a year.
Yeah, and then the key question I'll ask when we now move into the conversation is the question about are both parties respecting what the rent act says in terms of, because they're going to finance the renting now in terms of 6 months rent that it imposes. Stay with me. When we return from this quick break, we are now going to have the next hour of conversation with the Minister for Works and Housing. He's listened to the analysis. I'm sure he knows a lot about this already, that he might maybe agree or disagree. We'll also hear from Emmanuel Bedra, who is also spokesperson for the minority on this subject. Stay with me here. After this, Mr. Tachia and Emmanuel Bedra joining us. And thank you very much for joining us and staying with us here on PM Express. My guest in the studio is the Honorable Tachia, who is the Minister for Works and Housing. Also joining me is Mr. Bedra, who is the minority spokesperson on this particular issue, the housing sector that we're dealing with. I want to start with you, Mr. Bedra. Your quick reaction to the analysis we did, and I know there are areas that you agree. First, let's start with those you agree.
Well, I definitely agree with some of the issues that you raised, more especially the 20,000 housing unit that we put up, and you said it is
realistic.
Realistic. The Zongo one, where you said it's not realistic, I disagree with you because we did some analysis, and we think that we should be able to put up houses for underprivileged brothers and sisters in the Zongo communities. The other one has to do with the funding, which we'll talk about later on, and also to meet the demand, to meet the deficit, housing deficit, for some period. We'll look at that as well.
Okay.
Yes. My disagreement is with the figure. At the moment, we have the statistical services positing that it's a 2 million deficit, not the 1.7 that our good friend was trying to put across. So we should look at it very well. And what is very serious about this 2 million is that there is an assumption that in every household, 5 people are in there. So if you measure it properly, 5 times 2 million, we have a whole, 10 million individuals who do not have decent places of abode, measured against our population, which is climbing into 30 million. That makes the problem very, very, very acute.
So
and also, he didn't address the full import of doing 5,000 a year and how you wipe out the deficit. So that is a very, very interesting dimension. That
so in fact, if he analyzed it and said the 5,000 doesn't even begin to scratch the surface.
Oh, it's a pinprick. If you started doing 5,000 housing units a year, then by the measurement of the NDC, you're traveling about 400 years.
So under the estimate, he mentioned it to take 39 years.
Really?
And by the time you get to that point, the population would have increased, and so then the deficit you can't catch up the deficit.
It's 2 million housing units of a deficit. If you did 5,000, just do the arithmetic. How many years are you going to use in wiping out the deficit?
Maybe your analysis, you're looking at only the 20,000, that for the period of 4 years, and that amounts to about 5,000 per year.
Yes.
And that is not all. If you look into our manifesto carefully, we also have this Zongo Zongo housing unit.
But you didn't give us how many units you want to build.
Exactly. You know, with the 20,000, 20,000 has to do with the MMDAs, the metropolitan, municipal, and district assemblies. We said we're going to liaise with them and the traditional authority and put up houses there. So we're looking at at least 50 units in every district of the 260, metropolitan district. That is just with the district assembly, decentralization part. Now, when it comes to the urban centers, that's why we name ours low housing, program. It's different from the urban centers, where the urban centers also has the big push, where we'll be putting up, houses, but we do not term it affordable housing or low income. So
what are you terming it?
No, it's putting up houses actually. Okay. Yeah. So we have the
problem is those below, and we had analysis show those below, those in the low income bracket. Yeah. That's what the problem is.
Yes. So
currently we have a glut of houses in that upper tier.
Exactly.
I mean, so we don't need more of that.
No, we need more. At least we need more.
That's where we have a glut of that.
No, at all.
In terms of higher market, there's a lot of houses currently right now that are unoccupied. People can afford them.
Where?
The real estate companies have a lot.
It's true.
That's across the country, there are so many of those higher end housing that people simply cannot afford.
Evans, people are building houses and people are selling houses in this country.
True, but we're talking about affordability.
You see, the term affordability, you cannot afford. Somebody can afford.
Okay, so
let us not miss the two at all.
But let's get it right. It seems to me that my good friend was trying to run away from the positive statement in the NDC manifesto. It's so clear. The next NDC government will, over a 4-year period, roll out an aggressive social housing plan to deliver a minimum of 20,000 low-income houses where in all the 260 metropolis, municipalities and districts.
Exactly.
So I don't know where you're talking about any other area like the Zongo will show it up and the rest of it. Of course, you find all these municipalities and districts having Zongos.
True.
So I think it's all encompassing this is what we intend doing.
No, we have our 20,000, we have the Zongo one, and then we have the completion of those that have not been completed.
Okay. I mean, but let's go to the basics, okay? Because if you say 20,000 low-income housing units,
yes,
and you say this is aggressive social housing plan.
Exactly.
Isn't this your flagship intervention?
That is our flagship.
But so that's the point he's making. Your flagship intervention doesn't even begin to
at all
scratch the surface.
The deficit is so huge. You see, we have, with the greatest of respect, we have such a huge deficit in terms of housing units that what we're attempting to do, I mean, I'm afraid it's like you're just scratching the surface. If you have a deficit of 2 million housing units and you just want to do 5 1,000 housing units a year, which you might want to do for 4 years. Granted, by the grace of God, you might want to come back into power and do this job. Then when are we going to wipe out the deficit? So what I can see from your premise is that you do not have a very comprehensive. So what you say is aggressive. I'll
come to the response. But the fundamental question to you is, in your manifesto, they have been specific. You have no number of how many housing units exactly you want to deliver in 4 years.
You see, when we're talking about the housing delivery, so far as we are concerned, we were the first to moot this idea that every constituency should have flats and units. So sometimes when you do not understand the fundamental issue that the thing is so huge and you want to come up with some kind of number, you ridicule your own self. But when you combine the factors that you put together, what we want to intervene by way of getting the private sector involved and then the government's support, using state housing company and by extension also TDC, I tell you that we're not talking about 5,000
So to the question, how many housing units do you want to deliver in 4 years, the next 4 years if you win?
Well, I can tell you that if and when we assume the reins of government and we want to tackle this aggressively, it should be a minimum of about 200,000.
200,000 housing units in 4 years?
In a year.
In a year?
Yes.
So you're saying that in 4 years, we want to deliver 800,000 units?
That is what we should do.
To believe...
And even more, when we apply ourselves properly to the state-of-the-art technology that we believe we should apply, where you can have prefabricated structures that within 21 days, you can see a good and decent place of abode. Because so far as we're concerned, if we went through this normal way of building houses, I'm afraid this deficit will be mocking us for a long time. That's why you have the Solin group. If you went to Springtest Road, it is something that we are very hell-bent in achieving in the next term, when we have the grace to continue, that we'll be able to deliver houses in 21 days. And that technology is from Hungary.
Okay, so we have clarity. 200,000 housing units at least in 1 year, every year for the next 4 years if you win. That brings it to 800,000. Second question is, I'll come to Mr. Bedra, I know you have a lot to say, but the second question is to believe that in any government seeking to retain power, you have to look at track record. What is your track record in this area? In the last 4 years, how many housing units have you delivered?
Well, the MPP government have not delivered like mainstream, like the Ministry of Works and Housing has not delivered mainstream, serious housing units because of, obviously, the financial space. You see, let me tell you why the MPP government is stressing strong that it is our second term that we will see a massive housing rollout. Is because of what we call the inherited troubles that we came to with. First of all, 33 billion Ghana cedis debt. If you add also the financial rollout for the banks, 33 billion. Then there was a major intervention in the area of free senior high school. Then we move on to planting for food and jobs, and then roads. If you are realistic, you understand, and put the three areas of economic interventions together, you have very little financial space to do massive rollout of housing, because essentially majority of these developers are looking for, well, if you can't give us the raw cash or LC as the benefit they had with the Saglemi when an LC was rolled out, 200 million United States dollars, deliver 5,000 housing units, and you are unable to do it because of debt sustainability, then you can say for sure that what you really want to do is in your second term, where you prioritize and be sure that you're going to do serious work. But that notwithstanding, some housing units have been done.
Okay, so my second question was, so to be clear, in 4 years, you don't have a single housing unit to your name?
There is the housing units that we did so well, which is the, what we call the redevelopment housing units, which we did with Roman Ridge area.
Redevelopment, what is that? Is it housing that were already there? That
No. What is it? The matter is that the area is a prime area. So what we did was to give it to a developer who will develop some good housing units for us and take the rest of the land and do whatever commercial properties they want to do to compensate for the development they've had. We continue with their own.
Has that been completed?
It's been completed.
And people are living in it.
People are living in it.
How many units?
Let me give you the raw figures because I don't want to make a mistake with this. This is a very important forum, and I don't want to deceive anybody. Let me give you, for example, relating to the Roman redevelopment. The first phase was 9 bungalows, which were redeveloped to 39, and the townhouses were 24 apartments at Roman Ridge. The second phase of what we were doing was 118 housing units, and it's made up of 72 bedroom and 36 bedroom and 12 townhouses, which is in the area of Airport and the Castle Road. Again, if you pay regard to the phase 2 of the Security Services housing, the development, they started it. And we always want to say that the two of us, we agree on this matter. Do not abandon projects of the previous government. They did, it commenced in 2015, but we did 60% of the completion, 60%. Though they did 40 and completed it. And the vice president, commissioned it in March 2018. And then what we've done also, which is ongoing, is a phase 2 of the security service projects, where we have 320 housing for the Ghana Police Service at Tesano. It's currently 24% complete. So these are some of the interventions. But then what we've done also, which we don't want to claim too much credit, is interventions of TDC and also what's it called, State Housing Company Limited, in their own way. That is why we said that when you want to do serious housing undertakings, you can use these state institutions to do it, because then you will not have the problem of debt sustainability, because they can borrow on their books or they can be recapitalized by the government, so they expand the scope of their work.
So to be clear, the ones that you pointed to that you started,
yes,
just roughly around 200 units.
Yes.
Yeah, but in 4 years.
Yes, because of the financial space.
That is failure, some may say.
It's not. What about the serious matter of the Saglemi, when they had the money? I'm saying that they had the money, the 200 million sitting in an account in a Bank of Ghana. And if you go into the numbers, it's one of the most embarrassing things that people don't want to talk about.
In fact, what I'll do is I'll come to Saglemi.
Yes.
Because it's such an important plank that we need to isolate and deal with by itself.
And Saglemi also questions the bona fides of NDC to do any serious housing project.
Okay. So that will come to, because we'll deal with Saglemi and the unfinished business of housing in the last. But he says 200,000 units every year, and I'll come to whether these are affordable housing or not, low income conversation shortly. But that is ambitious. 800,000 in 4 years in a minimum. You say 20,000. That clearly is.
Evans, it clearly begs his question, because as you ask him whether he has done any housing unit, you hear from him he's not able to pinpoint to any of the houses that have been completed. Refilling of housing, that is what he has done. Apart from the refilling means you are redesigning and filling in, give a land to already developed area, give it to a developer, he fills in, which we have done severally. I mean, if you consider from 2012 to 2015, we've done the refilling at the Roman Ridge. He's aware. Now, let me give you some statistics that will back our claim that even the 20,000 is a figure that we gave out. We'll do more than that, and I'll explain why we'll do more than that. In 2016, we completed 1,500 units. In 2016, at Affordable House, Boteman, 1,600.
Started from scratch and finished.
No, they started.
Okay. So that's important clarity.
So we finished it.
Okay.
1,600 units that we finished. You know Boteman here and more. Then Kumasi, that they started, we finished 1,125 units, and it's almost about 95%
occupied now.
Occupied now.
Now what they did, let me
just finish. When they're talking, I didn't talk. Then the Navy one, the security services. We started with the security services. We started with the phase 1, that's the BNI, the one is 168 numbers, which was completed and handed over. Then the phase 2, Navy, the Navy one, we completed almost 95%.
You didn't?
The vice president only went, that day, when we were debating, I told you that the vice president only went to, commission it, because we did not have the privilege to commission it. The vice president, when we lost power, he came and commissioned because we were completed. And then he started the phase 3. The phase 3 is what they are about 40% completed. Phase 3, from 2017 that they took over to today, 320 units has not been completed. So they don't have the track record. We have the track record. Apart from that, we started Saglemi, 5,000 units, which we'll have the debate later on. So it means clearly, Evans, we have the track record to be able to deliver, when it comes to housing sector. Now, let's come back to whether the 20,000 is the only unit that will be able to. That is the social housing sector, the public housing delivery. Now, we've not even talked about the private sector. We've not talked about, empowering. If you read our manifesto, we said we're going to empower the State Housing Corporation to finish some of the housing units, like that of the Pong area. There are some housing units which are not been completed. We will go back and complete those housing units. So if you add all those ones to the ones that we say will deliver, which is the public sector delivery from the Ministry of Works and Housing, you are talking of not less than, not less than 25 to 30,000 housing.
So the Honorable will come to you shortly. So your specific number now, because that is important.
No, the 20,000.
People are watching and they want to decide who is addressing that housing problem and how. He's put a figure of 20,000 housing units per year at least. You say 20,000, but you say if you put all together, all your interventions, comes out to annually how many units?
Well, between 20,000 to about 30,000.
But that's still fall way short of.
He says 800,000. He says 200,000. And he's not able even to put up one.
You see, it's very sad when I hear statements like that, you see. When at the end of the day, you leave a government in the hole. Look at your Saglemi issue. The Saglemi issue.
You want to, okay, let's go there. Let's talk about the Saglemi. Let's get out of the way.
Let me tell you the tragedy of this country. It's not that we don't want to be very realistic. If and when the Saglemi housing project has been successful and they've used 200 million United States dollars to deliver 5,000 housing units and sold them, when we assume the reins of government, we would have revolved it. That is the essence of government. Here we are, and this is what they've done. Well, let's continue. But rather, it has left us a huge challenge and a debt. If you look at it critically, and I don't want to try to misbehave, because this gentleman is my very good friend, I want to talk facts. Do you know the embezzlement in the Saglemi housing undertaken by the NDC, as assessed by the Ghana Institution of Surveyors, is 114 million United States dollars.
Embezzled in the Saglemi project.
Oh, sure, already. Yes.
Mention the figure again.
114,921,837.11.
$114,000.
That is so. That is so. That is what that
means. 114 million. 114 million.
Out of the 200 million that was
you said embezzled.
Of course. It's been embezzled. And it came through what they were the quantity surveyors will measure war by war and everything. I have the full report that, with the greatest respect, is done by the Ghana Institute of Surveyors, because our real challenge is that I didn't want to even use an individual. We wanted to use an institution to do this job. Lest they said, oh, look, they've done some kind of a competitive bidding and some private person has been picked for that. So we wanted an institutional kind of assessment. So therefore, when I tell you that they lack the bona fides to do any serious thing, because we have never had the opportunity of having, excuse me to say, 200 million United States dollars since I became a minister.
The Parliament approved $200 million.
Yes.
For what?
For your 200,000 recently.
The Parliament approved $200 million for housing or not?
No, Parliament has not approved.
We approved.
The Parliament did approve
200 million.
Yes, recently for you.
For Ministry of Works and Housing, or to go into the area of this mortgage housing development.
Yeah, housing.
Yes. So that's a difference. Well,
But you were going to use 200 million to build housing.
Yes.
Oh, please.
Which you assess on Parliament.
Please. You see, what is done is the seed money for the purpose of trying to roll out these houses, which has been started by the Minister of Finance using developers, and they assessing money through Stanbic Bank and then Ghana Commercial Bank. So these are the seed monies, but there is no a chunk of money that has been given to the ministry for the purposes of the Ministry of Works and Housing rolling out affordable housing. These are the facts.
I'll come to you shortly. My question to you on the 114 million that you say has been embezzled.
Yes.
You've had 4 years. Embezzlement of that amount is criminal.
Yes.
You haven't prosecuted anybody.
You see, what has happened, and it's very, very important for everybody's consumption, is that we didn't want to do propaganda with this issue. So what happened is that every detail of what I'm talking about has been ferried to the Director General CID, and the investigations are ongoing. And we don't want to talk about it as if we are just sort of pretending this mess. No, they are doing their work seriously.
So the CID is investigating.
Oh, sure.
But you've already categorically said someone that's embezzled the money when the investigation is
I'm saying that when you do proper quantity surveying analysis by the expert, the theft is 104.
Evans, let me just
million.
Evans,
United States dollars.
So forgive me. I just want to clarify this.
Yeah.
So you are not at the point where you can prosecute anybody yet.
They have investigated the matter.
Yes, but that is my question. If they're investigating, how do you conclude that some money has been embezzled?
It's arithmetic. Let me tell you why it's arithmetic. You have 200 million United States dollars to deliver 5,000 housing units. The houses on the ground and the measurement they've done, you've not even done 20% of the housing units you're supposed to deliver. Then you get what we call quantity surveyors who will do the measurement of what is on the ground. And when they've done that scientific analysis of what is on the ground, as against the monies that you've received, the defalcation is in the sum of 104 million.
Yeah, I mean, this. I've heard you talk about this prosecution. In fact, the Attorney General had to step in at some point to say, you've sent the report to them.
Yes.
For the last 3 years, I've heard you say this.
Yes.
And you still haven't moved. 2 months to the end of your term, 3 months to the end of your term, I mean, give or take, you're still saying that you're still investigating.
You see, the powers of investigations are not with us. That is why there is what we call the Ghana Police Service, and if you like, YOCO and those.
But for 3 years, you've been saying the same thing.
No, but what it is that when you release these matters for them to work on, are you going to stampede them into coming out with prosecution? They need to, you need to get certain things on the ground and have a whole dossier put together.
So who embezzled the money?
Well, it's interesting for you to know. First of all, the contractor, if you want to ask me, and then those who aided them to do it.
Aided by who?
People have to sign as ministers before monies are paid.
So the Minister for Works and Housing?
I wouldn't want to go too much in that, but it will come out that without a minister's signature in trying to get somebody rewarded for work not done, monies will not be paid.
Yeah, so the minister obviously is a person of interest at least.
Of course, how can that be? Because at the end of the day, I'm saying that, how would you say there is an embezzlement of 104 million United States dollars without somebody signing that the one who's not done the work should be paid?
Mr. Collins Dowda was a minister at the time.
Yes.
Has he been spoken to on that?
He's been invited, and that is something that I didn't want to go into that because I don't want to make politics out of it. But I'm saying that
he's invited when, recently or a year ago?
Oh, he's been invited at the beginning of the year.
This year?
Yes, year.
Did he honor the invitation?
He had no choice.
The CID did invite him.
Yes, he was invited.
So, and what was the outcome of the investigation?
They are processing the whole issues, and
he hasn't been charged.
I'm not sure he's been charged because at the end of the day, they want to do a thorough job. It's very, very, very interesting for you to know that I don't believe in witch hunting. But when the arithmetic is clear, let's leave them to do it. But I'm saying that I have conclusive evidence that the defalcation is in the sum of 104 million odd United States dollars. You measure the houses on the ground. That is why it lies ill in their mouth to talk about NDC, MPP not rolling out housing. If you had the benefit of, what's it called, even 2 million, 200 million United States dollars anywhere to do any housing, you would have seen that this is revolving. And that is how messy the whole thing is.
Mr. Bedra?
Evans, it looks like our conversation is shifting to Saglemi.
No, I want
let me clear this Saglemi. Let me clear this Saglemi. You rightly asked him why for all these 3 years to 4 years nobody has been prosecuted. I'm a member of Ghana Institution of Surveyors, not just an honorary member. I'm a fellow of the Ghana Institution of Surveyors. I'm not just a surveyor. I'm a quantity surveyor by profession, and I belong to a political party. I will not sit in Parliament as a member of the Western Housing Committee. Then will with all assessment, and then somebody else will say that we have been shortchanged by this by the contractor or by the former administration. Now he says that the institution has given him some measurement, has given him some costing. He has not made it available to the minority. We have trumpeted this. We have said it over. I took journalists to the side, said that if there is anything that anybody has done, we want evidence. He has brought some evidences. He said he has sent all those evidences to the Attorney General for advice. Till today, the Ghana is to the police. Yeah. Today, the Ghana Institution of Surveyors or the Ghana Institution of Surveying is on the block now. You are telling us that my institution has gone there to do measurement. I'll cross-check.
Sure.
And Evans, I want you to cross-check. I'll give you the name of the president and the chairman of my division to be sure whether the institution has gone there to do any measurement, because the then MD of AESL was a fellow of Ghana Institution of Surveyor. He was a quant surveyor. The late Alhaji Mashood Musa. Mashood Musa will not supervise a job that is expensive, that will that will go beyond what is supposed to to be given. So for this one, I don't want to take it. I want Joy FM to go
tomorrow. Yes. Tomorrow, with the greatest of respect, I'll do you the honors of delivering to you a copy of the report by the Ghana Institution.
And give me a copy as well.
I can give you a copy free of charge. That is an honor that I owe this studio, because I hold you people in high esteem, and I'm not here to do propaganda.
Okay.
That at my level, I'm beginning to say that no measurement has been done, but for purposes of showing that some people have messed up this country, I mean, I'm coming to say so.
Yeah, so tomorrow morning I'm going to give you a call.
Yes, please do.
And can you leave it in the office so that we can pick it?
You can collect it from my secretary.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll give you a copy.
So that
satisfies you.
Yeah, that satisfies me.
So you accept that 140 million has been embezzled?
It doesn't lie in our mouth.
So you doubt the powers of the institution you belong?
No, because if
when you see it, listen. When you see that,
I've not seen it. I've not cited.
Okay,
it. I've not seen it.
But do you dispute that?
I dispute
that your organization belongs to this?
Yes.
How do you dispute what you've not assessed?
Well, you are saying it, so I'm disputing what you have just said. So I'm not saying what you have said. So I'm disputing what you have said.
So assuming tomorrow we see the document and it's true that they found that.
We'll go through it.
If you give me 5 minutes, I'll go into my car and bring it. I have it in my car.
We'll go through it.
Okay. I want to take a break. I want to take a break and then let's see it, because I want to wrap up this.
Yes.
Finally, before we go,
I'm going to bring it.
So stay with me. I'm going to take a quick break. When I return, we'll see what the Ghana Institute of Surveyors said. Did they actually say that the NDC and including the minister embezzled as much as $140 million?
Yes.
Stay with me.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for staying with us. So during the break, the Minister for Works and Housing, Mr. Atacha, went to his car to bring the Institute of Surveyors report on the Saglemi housing project. Before that, he had alleged that the Institute of Surveyors had established that as much as $140 million plus had been embezzled by individuals in the previous administration. The contractor was mentioned, and of course the former minister was also a person of interest, has actually been invited. He was challenged to bring the document. He had gone to his car and actually had returned with a very bulky document that he is obviously going through. I want to quickly bring him in so he can point us to the specifics he had touched on.
Yes. With the greatest of respect, I alluded to the fact that the Ghana Institution of Surveyors had come out a report showing that what is on the ground, measured against the money received, will bring out a very, very huge figure of about 114 million United States dollars. And you have the surveyor called Dr. John Maglo, the president, signing this document.
The president of the Ghana Institute of Surveyors.
Yeah, the president of the Ghana Institute of Surveyors.
His signature is there.
His signature is there. And then let's go to the executive summary, and some of these things will be very clear. It is stated in black and white that the amount paid to the contractor is 179,904,7525. And it's stated clearly that the total works on the ground is 64. The difference is what gives you the 104 million I'm talking about.
So they've paid a total 179, but
Yes.
have actually delivered a work amounting
Precisely.
to worth 64 million.
64 million.
So the question is, where is the remainder?
That is the defalcation. You see, because at the end of the day, the quantity surveyors can tell you the kind of cost in even the wall.
Okay.
That is the expertise.
So the quantity surveyor had gone to say,
Of course.
all the work they've done
Of course.
should amount to 64 million.
982
However, we've paid you 179 million.
And therefore, the difference is the theft. It's not a spiritual thing. This is what we call ocular proof. And if you look at all the measurements, anybody who's trained as a quantity will tell you they measured everything. And even there was a whole annexure of about 1,000 pages that they made reference to, but because they couldn't they couldn't annex it. They didn't want to write an encyclopedia. But in good time, those who want to verify the minutest detail of the Saglemi housing delivery will come to terms with that. But I'm afraid this is some of the things the people don't want to do. And I want to insist that every government is in continuum. Article 35(7) makes it very clear that government is in continuum. So the NDC government has delivered 5,000 housing units using the 2 million United States dollars, and the houses are sold. That kind of the money we can recoup from the investment can be rolled out, and we'll be able to talk about serious business. That's why they are telling you that we can only do 5,000. Because that is what they attempted and they messed up.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can verify it for yourself. As you can see, the document. So this is your president.
Yeah.
You had mentioned before that you were going to talk to the president.
Yes, I'll talk to the president.
Yeah. This is his signature.
Okay.
So you agree that...
Oh, this is Amaglo, yeah.
That's him. And the executive summary, he talks about...
So if you can make this available, because...
I'll give you a copy.
Yes,
I've told you that because of where you are in the Committee of Works and Housing.
So that is 179 million paid, total payment to contractor per term of reference.
Yes.
And then he comes to total cost of works executed on site, including the desalination plant at 64 million. Do you agree that there is a huge amount of 140 million now that the evidence has been provided?
Well, I need to go through it.
It's arithmetic.
But on the face of it, it's obvious.
This is what the book is saying. This is what.
Does it surprise you? Does it surprise you?
It surprised me. It surprised me. Yeah, it surprised me.
Why does it surprise you?
Well, from what we know and from what we all agreed, the house delivery so far should be more than this. And if the institution is saying this is what they have done, somebody has to challenge it.
There is no question that this is a credible institution, and if they've done work and signed by the president, it is incontrovertible.
It is a credible institution, but it's done by individuals. So somebody must also cross-check it.
But this is.
I belong to the institution. I have a firm.
This is an institution that before he brought it, you were categorical that could not have said that. So
I can also bring a document. I need to find out whether it is done. I can design this thing like this and also come out with something. So let's find out. I said I was going to call the president. So let me call and find out whether it's true or not.
But it's true. I mean, listen. I mean, the document in front of you, you're holding it.
Anybody at all can produce anything.
Goodness me, you're saying that he sort of.
No, I'm not doubting.
Okay.
I said anybody at all can produce anything.
But this is not anybody. This is your own.
Evans.
And you say you are a senior member of the institution.
Evans.
He's a respected member.
Evans. Let's find out from the institution whether this was done by the institution.
But I found it very difficult.
No, but what are you reading? What are you reading?
I'm reading the document.
Yeah,
I'm
you
saying
said the signature, you know.
It's him.
So I cannot bring in a document here.
No.
Signed by His Excellency.
No. What kind of fraud would I be practicing on Ghana?
So
to improvise a document in the name of the...
You have given this one to the police?
I've given it to the police.
So let the police do whatever they want to do.
Yeah, but
let's leave it there. The police will continue to do whatever. I need a copy.
I'll give you one. I'll give you a copy. I'll give one to my brother too.
Yes, I'm very grateful. I mean, so let's return to... Let's finalize this. Honorable, you have said recently to us that you want to finish the Saglemi by December. You said that this is one of the major top priorities of my ministry and it's going to be done. We need to complete them before the year ends. We are 2 months to the end of the year.
I have to apologize to you that it took considerable time to bring finality to this because this was a document which we believe could spell out where we are and where we're going to go. I can tell you that it was not easy to go through that kind of process. It took months. So I have to apologize, but I couldn't stampede what was scientific. Because at the end of the day, if you try and come out with something cheap to try to embarrass NDC, then you are not being professional. I was never called as a minister to come and fiddle with figures to make a political capital out of it. Give the devil his due. So when they've done the measurement, now we know where we are and how to finish it. So we just want to bring developers on board who want to see their way through this. And if they can agree, go through PPE. And then
so your apology is to say you cannot meet your own previous deadline of finishing it by December?
Yes, because of the scientific exercise that took so long to finish. Okay. I could tell you that there's 1,000 pages that could not be put together like this, which is a supporting document.
So now, now that you have it, when do you hope to finish now?
Well, let me leave it to the issues of the credible contractors who are interested to conclude the PPA arrangements, and then what will happen is that what has been done has not been completed, they could complete it, and the rest of it, obviously, has to go through Parliament again, because we don't have to joke with the power of Parliament to approve some of these huge sums of money.
Mr. Bajra, let's come back to the key issues that we're talking about the housing for the poor. Let's talk about affordable housing again, the social housing intervention.
Evans, I mentioned that we are not limiting our housing delivery to only the 20,000. I mentioned that the Zongo community will also benefit from some of the social intervention house for the poor community. And in our manifesto, if you look at page 82, we stated that we will liaise, that's a Zongo and deprived urban settlement. We will liaise with some banks and other financial institutions to launch the Zongo housing scheme to provide support for affordable housing in Zongo and deprived urban settlement. So we are not looking at only the 20,000. We are looking at other housing units as well in Zongo and deprived communities. And then I heard my colleague from Imani saying that with the Zongo, it's difficult to...
Because the analysis and the evidence show that most people there cannot afford the social housing costs, the price of the social housing you're going to put up there.
So we have this one, which could also be rent to own, okay? You rent, you pay for the rent, and then after 15 to 20 years, you own it. That is also there.
But that's not how you called it. You called it rent to pay agreements.
Whether rent to pay or rent to own.
No, but being specific is important, because it's about what you have proposed. You said liaise with some banks, financial institutions, to launch the Zongo housing scheme to provide support for affordable housing in Zongo and the private. You didn't state exactly, just affordable housing.
Yes, of course. If you put up affordable houses. No, we are saying affordable houses here, or what we call the
social housing.
Housing. Now, with the social housing, it's not the high-end type of building that we're talking about. Now, if you look at the Suyaya housing system, Suyaya housing is the traditional type of housing that is very decent. Traditional type of housing, decent, without any tiles on the floor. You understand? The normal type of building, that should not cost us so much.
Okay, so let's go back to the basics. When you say social housing, affordable housing, let's go price, because that's one key analysis that shows us that that has been a challenge because the cheapest right now is $20,000, which is 108,000 cedis. For the NDC, in price terms, how are you defining social housing?
Okay, so like your colleague has said, the social housing, we're looking at about $25,000.
That is, how is that affordable?
$25,000.
You see,
and then
no, he was even saying 20,000.
Yes. But because that's what the statute says. But the second leg of the analysis show that if you use 25,000, the cheapest, only 9.5% of the population can afford it. So
that is where you can build houses for people to rent.
You see,
yeah. I mean, what is your definition, the NDC, the MPP of social? It says $25,000. Yours is.
You see, is the 25,000 United States dollars with a credible mortgage regime. Okay. You see, because nobody can put his hand in his pocket, given, I mean, the income levels to go and buy a house. But if you pay regard to what affordability is, it means that when you give the person space in a credible mortgage arrangement, not the kind of 25% on interest rate on mortgage, but that which we want to see as a paradigm shift. And I want to read this to you, because this is one of the things I believe in could bring about a paradigm shift. If you pay regard to page 158 of our manifesto, this is what we want Ghanaians to look forward to. Amend the law to allow the pension funds to invest more than 5% of their portfolio in real estate assets, including pension-backed mortgages.
They also have a similar...
Yeah, we have the National Mortgage Assistance Scheme.
Also through the finance, also using pensions as well.
For my part, you see, when we all converge on the point that the income levels of our people will not be able to buy them houses, and we say that let's even go beyond the minimum of 5%, and do 30% of every coin that drops in the pension fund. Let's leverage on that for housing, construction, finance, and also a mortgage arrangement. Then because the people's money
from the pension
fund, we could determine by operation of law that the interest on those mortgages could be even 5%. And then you can have the opportunity to own a house maybe 20 years, depending on, I mean, your level of income. Because if you didn't use the people's money for their benefit, and I've made this argument, I continue to make the argument, what is more serious in life? To go and take your gratuity and go and live in a family house at Chebi, where you'll be struggling with about 6 other young people for space to live. Or let's say all that you could do in your life is a 2-bedroom house in which over time you pay and go and have it in the evening of your years when your strength is dwindling. So I do not see social security as more important as giving a house to somebody who's contributed to the fund.
Okay, so,
yes,
so
that is social security.
The question that I'd like to ask both of you on the subject. So your social housing, the cost is also $25,000. That is
the basic.
Okay. So both of you are at the same level. But here's a challenge. The Center for Affordable Housing Finance in Africa in 2019 says that, and this is for Ghana, urban households that could afford this, and even there they were pegging it at $20,000. Okay, this house with finance is 9.4% of the population.
What do they mean by with finance? That is when they have the money.
That is if there's a financing arrangement.
Oh no, that cannot be true.
No, but
if there's a financing arrangement via leveraging on the pension fund, then a lot more people can afford it.
Okay, but the point I'm making is, remember that this is salary backed. Both of you make the point that to benefit from there's going to be salary, you have to have a regular income.
That is so.
The analysis show that for those who will earn enough to be able to pay the monthly, and both of you say this is going to be paid monthly, the monthly deductions.
Yes.
They don't. Only 9.4% of people will earn enough to pay at least 700 cedis to defray $20,000 a month for the duration of the mortgage. That is a challenge. These are pure facts.
Well,
these are pure facts.
Well,
and both parties obviously haven't addressed your minds to this.
No. You see, for me, I do not see it as a challenge in the sense that it depends on how long you want to. Retire the mortgage arrangement.
Yeah. See, how long are you looking at? You say 15 to 20 years.
Yeah, 15 to 20 years.
I think if you did 25 years, you understand?
It will obviously reduce how much you're going to pay.
It's going to do so. It's going to achieve that. And if you peg the interest rate in the reasonable limits of say 5% to 7%, rather than the 27% we are experiencing, because I don't know the interest rate that was used in calculating this.
Under your tenure, you in the arrangement of the $1 billion that you put out for the housing policy.
Yes.
The banks that are partnering you to execute this are giving rates at 11, maximum 12%.
Yes.
Far below the 25% that is. So you're already doing something there, but you're mentioning 5-7%.
We could do better if you use the people's own money as a basis of creating the credible mortgage arrangement.
Okay, so in effect,
this is what we are trying to say.
What we are, both parties are saying is that, and I know when we come to power come December 2020, 7th December, and
7th January.
7th January when we are sworn in, it is just to change.
Who will be sworn in?
It's just to amend the SNIT law.
Okay.
Where SNIT, your part of your pension could be used as a mortgage finance to support you.
Okay.
That is what we are saying. We are both saying. Now, they proposed it in 2016, but they couldn't do it. In fact, it's there in your own manifesto that fully implement Section 103, assignment of pension benefit of housing of workers of the National Pension Act.
To even make it more pronounced, they actually put it in their budget.
They even put in, yes, it's in the budget. They even put it in the budget,
but they haven't done it. So that goes to track record, by the way. That goes to track record.
But you couldn't do it.
Yes, that's a point.
So you need a political will to be able to push some of these things. Because we've been discussing this all along in Parliament. He comes to me and says, we can do this. He comes and addresses it, but he wasn't able to do it.
That is why. See,
so when we come to power, we will implement that because we need, workers to back this, housing delivery.
Final words.
Yes, I gave a foundational statement which should not be lost on people. The challenge of Akufo-Addo in trying to solve free senior high school, moving to planting for food and jobs, and then going to roads.
Here he goes again.
Crowded out the financial space.
Making excuses.
They are reasonable grounds.
But you promised that you're going to do free senior high school, and then in doing the free senior high school, you also promised them that you are going to housing for all. It's in your manifesto.
Listen.
So why were you not able to deliver on housing for all?
You see, because if you place a government in a pit,
you could not even deliver one house.
Yeah, if you place a government in a pit, 33 billion Ghana cedis, and you still expect them to do free senior high school, planting for food and jobs, and then do roads, then probably you are in an utopian world.
Which
and that is how it's not going to
Maybe you should tell us one of the roads that they've done.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much. And I hope, having listened, at least you've come to a conclusion where to pitch your tent if housing is what will sway your votes this year. You've heard Akashian's proposal. He's explained it. For the first time, we've had the breakdown. I didn't know that you're going to do 200,000. At least now you've given us some meat to it.
It could be more, depending on even the technology you want to adopt. You see, bear in mind that there are technologies now
that will make it
a factory in the background.
It's not a number of houses. It's about the economy.
It's about money. Afford it.
That money to put out those facilities. That's what we are talking about.
But I'm saying that housing is priority.
You can have different systems to put up houses. You can deliver housing.
Gentlemen, I'm grateful. There's a lot more to chew on the Saglemi thing with the revelations that have been made tonight. I'm pretty sure tomorrow we'll get time to exhaust it. Enjoy the rest of your evening.